is up here in Canada. Well, hello, Canada. It's your Uncle Clark, and my goodness gracious, guess who we have on today's episode? The man who I consider to be the greatest male vocalist on the planet, and that is not an exaggeration, Mr. Marc Martel. That's right. Now, Marc's star was steadily rising with his band Down Here from 2001 to 12, but it wasn't until he entered an online contest in the fall of 2011 to see who could sing the most like Freddie Mercury that his star began to really shine. Since winning that competition, Marc has amassed millions of fans all over the world and was even tapped to provide some of Freddie's vocal performances in the Oscar award-winning movie Bohemian Rhapsody. Now, Marc was kind enough to sit down and chat with me about his musical process, singing a song live for Celine Dion as requested by Celine Dion, his meteoric rise to fame, Queen, the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, and a whole lot more, so don't go anywhere. Up next is the 5th episode of Stay in Beauty with Uncle Clark, and I could not be more excited. Stay in Beauty with Uncle Clark and Marc Martel. This episode of Staying Beauty with Uncle Clark is brought to you by Briarcrest College. Now, Briarcrest College has been developing leaders like Clark and Marc for over 85 years. Every year, hundreds of young adults choose Briarcrest, and what they find is a world-class education and an incredible Christian community. The kind of community that produces classic friendships like the one Marc and Clark are showcasing in this very podcast. And while we can't promise you'll become a YouTube star like Clark or an award-winning musical phenom like Marc, we can promise relationships that last a lifetime. Briarcrest is open this fall for on-campus or online education. Check out briarcrest.ca for more information. And now, here's your host, Clark W. Hey, Marc, can you hear me in the headphones?
Yes, sir. I got you loud and clear.
Beauty. Okay, Clark.
Yeah, Jordan?
We're all ready for you. You want to come sit down?
Oh, beauty. All right. Hey, look at this now.
Might actually do one. Okay. All right, putting these on right. Okay. Hey, Marc.
This is.
Hey, big fan, buddy.
Hey, thanks, Clark. Likewise.
Oh, well, that is mighty kind of you to say. Marc, I'm very excited. This is the very first time I've actually made it to an actual interview. So let's, okay.
Whoa, hey, Daryl.
Daryl, come on.
Get out of here. I told you I'm doing a podcast.
Clark.
Is that tonight? Come on now. I'm actually going to do an interview. Come, Daryl.
Who's Daryl?
Fine. All right.
Boys, what day is it today? It's Monday?
Yeah, it's Monday.
For crying out loud. I'm supposed to take Daryl for a walk every Monday evening. I don't know how I forgot about that. All right. Okay. Well, Marc, I'm sorry, buddy. You okay if Jordan takes over and just kind of rolls through this interview with you?
I mean, if I'm going to be honest, it feels a bit like a bait and switch, but yeah.
Oh, no, that could not be further from the truth there. You have no idea what it's like to do. Daryl will not calm down. Will you, Daryl? Until I take him for his walk. There's nothing I can do to get out of this, but all right. Okay, boys, I'm really sorry. You take over and do what you do, Jordan. You know what you're doing. This ain't your first rodeo.
You bet. Well.
All right, see you boys in a little bit. I can't wait to hear how it turns out. Friggin' Daryl's stupid. Daryl. All right, get out of here, Daryl.
Have a good walk, boys.
Let's go, you big idiot.
I guess it's you and me, Jordan?
I guess. I guess. I thought he was actually going to do one this time, but
well,
okay.
That's fine, man. I'm sure we got lots to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure we do. And dealing with an angry polar bear, you got to take care of that sooner than later. So
I understand, don't we all?
We all have that problem.
Us Canadians.
Who amongst us has not had to deal with an ornery polar bear once or twice? Okay, Marc, I know who you are, and I can pretty much say for certain that everyone listening to this knows who you are. But in case someone has stumbled on this and has no idea who you are or I am, can you briefly say who you are, where you are from, and what you do?
Well, I am a professional musician. I was born in Canada and have made my home in Nashville, Tennessee for the last 20 years. Many people know me from my old band Down Here, which made like a 13, 14-year run. But probably most people know me as that guy that sounds like Freddie Mercury, and that's okay with me.
That's okay. It's working for you. It's
all right.
Okay, so and we know each other. Do you remember when we first met?
Man.
Not the day. I don't remember the day, but I mean
I know that we. Now this is just my memory. You might have a previous memory to this, but I know that we were in the same globe-trotting choir called Sojourn back in college.
Yes.
And previous to that, since you were in high school and I was in college, I don't really have a memory of you unless you were hanging out with your hot mom in her office there in Common Prod.
My mom was a legend at Briarcrest, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Also for her kindness. She was very kind, but most of my friends and everyone I knew wanted
Equally so.
somehow try and date her. But yeah, no, I remember it was Sojourn, and Briarcrest created this fictitious group to put around Mark so that they could parade Mark throughout the country advertising their music program. And really the rest of us were just kind of stand-ins to support your solo act, but we disguised it as a group act, and I was the trumpet player.
It's funny, today I was thumbing through Instagram, and Mel Gabriel posted a picture of us back in college sitting in a booth of the Pilgrim Restaurant. Just she, me, and Holly Kennedy.
Yeah, Holly Kennedy. Yep.
And all three of us were in Sojourn together, and it was, it wasn't a big choir, 16-piece choir. Yep. And how many, like 3 people in the band or something like that?
Yeah, 2 trumpets, a trombone, and then a drummer and electric guitar, I think.
Right.
And a flautist. Let's not forget the flautist. That's where the real magic of the group
You
lies.
always forget the flautist. But yeah, that was kind of the beginning of our knowledge of each other. I wouldn't say we became friends that year.
No.
I knew you. I knew you as the guy after that, the trumpet player in Sojourn. But we didn't really. I don't even remember barely ever talking to you.
No, I think I sat by you once in the van, and I thought, this is it. This is as great as life gets. And then I think we brushed our teeth beside each other in a church bathroom one time as well.
Which is so strange because it was, like I said, it wasn't a big group. How did we avoid each other so effectively?
I was that super awkward, like acne-stricken, prepubescent high school guy that was just kind of there because, they needed an extra trumpet player. So I was always a little bit on the outside looking in. But, fortunately, we became good friends after our Briarcrest days. And how did that happen? What was
that is because of the amazing women we married.
Right. Our wives, yes.
Yeah.
They were in China. Yeah, they were.
Our
in China.
wives happened to meet on a not really missions trip. They were working in China as teachers.
Teaching
English to kids. And they were part of the same organization, ended up being roommates for at least a year and traveling all over China and Vietnam together.
All sorts of crazy memories.
And I think my wife, Crystal, tells me the story of your wife, Mel, telling her about this band from her school, Briarcrest, called Down Here. And so apparently my wife, long before we ever met, was introduced to my music unbeknownst to her, because I don't know if she ever actually took the time to listen to her music. She was really into Starfield.
Oh yeah. Oh, your Canadian competitor.
Exactly. Well, there's only 3 Canadian Christian bands at the time that mattered: Starfield, Down Here, and Sweet Salt.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And oh man, yeah. So basically, my wife is responsible for introducing your wife to your music, and then you guys met at a Michael W. Smith concert, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's such a crazy story when you tell it. I don't know. It's like all the pieces fitting together like that. So Down Here opened for Michael W. Smith all across Canada in 2010. And when we got to Alberta, we played not at Edmonton, not Calgary, but Red Deer, Alberta.
Specifically,
which is like
right in the middle.
Right in the middle, right between Edmonton and Calgary. And I believe the reason for that was because Michael W. Smith was going to be playing both of those cities for his Christmas tour, so he didn't want to play them.
Oh, right.
Whatever time of year that was. And so we ended up playing the smaller town, Red Deer, Alberta, and Crystal had shown up to that concert with her family as kind of a family outing because they hadn't been doing much together. And now my mother-in-law said, why don't we do a family outing and go see Michael W. Smith? And obviously they had never heard of the band that was opening for him, but the lead singer was wearing particularly tight pants that night. And
were they leather pants?
They were not. I've never worn leather pants.
Okay, yeah. Just really tight pants.
I run hot, Jordan.
Yeah.
And if I were to, I would probably disintegrate if I wore leather pants.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay. And so then she came up to you after the show, or what happened?
Yeah, we chatted for just a couple minutes, really. She made an impression on me in those 2 minutes with her attitude.
She is an impressionable woman. She leaves
her confidence.
An impression.
She does. And so anyway, we Facebook and we were married 5.5 months later, and we are still madly in love.
Still, sparks flew, emotions ran high, and they're still flying and running high.
That's right. Yeah. And then she told me about her best friend Mel, who's married to Jordan.
Yeah, that guy you knew from that fictitious Briarcrest choir group.
Yeah, and that's how we eventually, the long way around, became really good buds.
Yeah. Then we vacationed a bunch together, and we used to until COVID happened, and who knows when we'll do that again. But my goodness, yeah. And we've worked on some music together, some Christmas stuff. And what are you working on right now?
Actually, Christmas stuff.
Christmas stuff.
The dirty little secret of the music industry is if you buy someone's Christmas album, the chances are very good that they did not record that music at Christmas. They recorded it in the sweltering heat of Nashville summer, which, right now I'm working on Christmas. I've got 3 or 4 tunes in the bag ready to release and for Christmas. But before then, I'll have hopefully about 6 songs ready to release on my next Christmas EP. And, trying to get back into writing. The reason why I haven't been writing all these last few years is because I've been so busy on the road, and I'm the kind of guy that needs stability and routine to really dig into my songwriting. I need my comfort zone in my studio.
Yeah. So you did your solo album a few years ago, and have you released any personal non-Queen Christmas stuff since then, or was that the last time?
That was the last of just kind of straightforward original material that I released. So yeah, it's starting to get to a point where it's been too long. Yeah. And trying to, and as you know, songwriting is a lot like a muscle. Well, it is a muscle, figuratively speaking, and I got to get that one back into shape.
So what you usually pull from personal experiences? Obviously on your last album, it was the topics and the themes were very, very personal. Do you have, a storage of material to pull from now going forward for your songs, or?
Yeah, it's interesting. Back in the Down Here days, I would say I pulled less from personal experience just because with Christian music, it's kind of all about the message. And I don't know, I never really, and this is a critique on my own self, is I never really learned to pour my own experiences really into the music, although there's plenty of music that we made that I'm super proud of. And then when when the band broke up and I went off and I did a couple albums on my own, I was like, okay, I'm gonna put myself on the record. And then I made a very uber personal record, which is Impersonator, which is kind of a lot about my own journey with my being compared to this larger than life figure in rock and roll history, and me coming to terms with that. And it's a very specific thing. It's a rare thing. When I think of that, I think of Macaulay Culkin once said in an interview that he had such a weird upbringing as a kid that he didn't know how to really relate to average kids. And so I think there's a little bit of that in my album Impersonator, even though it was probably the most fun I've ever had making an album, flying to LA for weeks at a time and writing the music and recording it all in the same day kind of thing. Every day and a half, we'd have a completely written and recorded track ready to go. And it was a really fun way to create. But yeah, I think I was just kind of getting out this weird thing that I was going through where everyone was and most of the people who were getting to know my name was through my association with this other thing. And it's, I don't know what else to compare that to. I'm sure there's other people who have had a similar experience in a different context. But I don't know how much those songs, maybe I'm not giving myself enough credit, but I don't know how much those songs could, relate to, normal people.
Right. Okay. Yep.
So yeah, I think on the next, whatever I do next, I'm going to try to find that middle road there of using my specific experiences and making them broader.
Do you feel creative fulfillment in doing these Christmas songs or your Queen covers or your other covers? Is that enough of a creative release for you to feel satisfied, or are you just still itching to do your own original material?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, yes, it's super satisfying to take a really well-known song and try to reimagine it and put your own stamp on it. And also at the same time, the other side of the thing is, like, I've never played jazz before in my life until I decided I was going to record a bunch of kind of traditionally jazz Christmas songs. And that's a very specific style of playing the piano, different chord structures than, traditional rock and roll. And so recording Christmas music has actually broadened my repertoire, my toolkit, with learning different chords and getting a little more used to not just playing straight diatonic chords on the piano.
Right.
So yeah, I've really enjoyed doing that. And obviously you've been a part of some of that and have produced how many of my Christmas tracks? 2 or 3?
I don't know. The big epic choiry ones are usually I just can't help but make them as epic as possible. But those were fun. Yeah.
And the Bleak Midwinter was
we did do a quiet
one
of that. In the Bleak
That was
Midwinter.
the first one we did together. Yeah.
I that was I mean, we were good buds, but we had never really worked on music together. And then I remember sitting in you still are a musical god to me, and you were more so then. I remember sitting in your studio in Nashville, shaking my head, where if I had told Jord 5 years previous that someday you'd be sitting in Marc Martel's studio producing a Christmas song with him and telling him how to sing a phrase a certain way, that would I would never have believed me. So
and I don't know if when you made me cry that one time.
Well,
it took me a long
someone
time
has
to,
to tell you how to sing correctly, Mark. I'm sorry it had to be me, but Okay, so do you remember let's go back quite a bit. When did you realize that you were into music or musical or had this ability to capture people's attention with your voice?
Oh, man, like the first time I realized I was interested in music, I don't know that I realized what was happening at the time, but I remember my first musical memory of where my brain was going was hearing sounds and processing them and going, how do I reproduce that sound? That sounds so amazing. I think back to when I was really, really young, like probably, 4 years old, and there's, me and my younger brother and sister going to sleep at night, and Mom would get on the piano and play Beethoven. And I remember specifically the Moonlight Sonata, which was one of the first, when I started taking piano lessons, and the first time that I got to a point where my teacher had confidence enough in me to ask me what I wanted to learn, if I had the choice, and I said, definitely I want to learn the Moonlight Sonata.
Okay.
And I remember when Mom was playing that late at night and, kind of lulling us to sleep with it, I would focus in on her left hand, and I was like, why does her left hand sound so heavy and full? And then I remember asking her a little while later, saying, Mom, how do you do that? And she's like, well, it's because, I'm full grown and my hands can reach an octave. And I was like, I can't wait till my hands get big enough to reach an octave so I can make that big, powerful sound. So yeah, that was pretty much my earliest musical memory that I can think of. But as far as like people telling me that I had anything above average, I don't know. I think I knew fairly young that I got positive attention and affirmation from people.
Yeah.
And that kind of caused me, because I'm an approval seeker, I think, by nature.
Yeah.
Probably like many people are. I mean, when people tell you you're good at something,
you want more
try
of it.
to repeat that good feeling. And so, yeah, I think, and a lot of that came from playing in church, whenever mom, who was the church's choir director and piano player, had any opportunity for me to be on stage or in a choir or a children's choir, whatever that was, I was there. And even when I didn't want to be. So, I had a very musical upbringing for sure.
When did you realize it was something that you wanted to pursue as a career?
That took a long time because growing up in Montreal, I don't know how it is in Kelowna. Did you grow up in Kelowna?
No, I grew up in, Cairnport, pretty much.
Cairnport.
Yeah.
What a silly question. Yeah. Much like growing up in Cairnport, Saskatchewan, growing up in Montreal, you don't, you're not surrounded by a lot of professional musicians, at least in the early 80s. In the circles that I frequented, there were not any professional musicians aside from a couple of like part-time music ministry people who had come through doing the church rounds. And especially since I was in a French church, a French Canadian church, my dad is a pastor, there's like the choices for original music is very, very limited. And most of the music that we sing in church is actually translated from English. So I remember as a kid, this one gospel group, they were a family, I think they were Haitian or Jamaican or something like that. And they came through our church, and this kid that was my age was like a master on the keyboard. Like he was blowing all the adults' minds. And he was probably like 10 years old, and he was the band's keyboard player, and he's playing all these licks. I'm like, this guy is on a different planet than I am. Here I am playing like really simple Beethoven stuff. And I'm like, that was the first time I remember thinking, I got to up my game. Because I didn't have any competition before that. I was always like big fish in a small pond. And just the fact that this kid was traveling around with his family, performing at, touring basically, was such a foreign thought to me. And it wasn't until like halfway through college that I even had the consideration that maybe I could do it as for a living, because before that I didn't know, there was no inroads for me.
So was that when you formed down here with Jason, or okay.
And I don't know, I think I'm hard-headed enough to even not, I don't even know if I believed it then, even when we started the band in 98. I thought, well, this could be fun until college ends, and then who knows what after that. But then obviously it went further than that. We got, thank you to Leroy Harder, who was instrumental in I think getting the engine started. He's a guy that we both know. He was on music faculty at the college.
At the recording studio?
Yeah, kind of a really visionary guy, kind of thrived on taking big risks, like starting a record label in the middle of nowhere. And a recording studio, and kind of modeling everything he did after what was going on in Nashville. And, even going as far as sinking like a good chunk of his own money into us going on the road for a summer tour, not knowing what we were doing, except we had these songs that we liked that we'd just written and recorded. And we were, and so for me, it was just like one small door opening after another. And not really looking beyond any further than that. And before I knew it, a couple of years later, I'm living in Nashville, Tennessee, just signed to one of the only record labels I had ever heard of in my life.
Which one was
actually
that? Word
Records.
Yeah.
So it's not like I grew up, and I think I always wanted to be a musician, but I just thought that was a pipe dream.
But music grabbed you from an early age, and has held on to you since.
Yeah, it was always kind of a part of who I was and how I fit in, especially in high school. I was the music guy. And there was this huge talent show they did. Well, to me, it was huge. The school had a talent show every year. And after a couple of years, people started to look forward to whatever I was going to do. And one of my good buddies who I played basketball with one year said, well, this year at the Marc Martel show, you stole the show again. And I was like, really? The Marc Martel? That's how you? Wow. Okay. I guess I'm the music guy.
Man, I remember back in Briarcrest, I would be walking through the Hildebrand Chapel foyer, and you could hear someone playing the piano and singing, or somewhere on campus. And eventually you'd figure out, I was like, oh, Mark is singing and playing the piano just by himself. Like, that was one of the great things I loved about Briarcrest, is you could find any little corner of the campus and just start, making music by yourself. And, but, when people found out it was you, word traveled quickly through campus. And it was just, those were some of my most memorable Briarcrest memories, was sitting in the back of the chapel with, like 40 other students who would slowly come in and quietly, didn't want to interrupt anything, and just watch you and listen to you play the piano. And
when I think back to that, it seems a little brazen. Like for obviously most people who don't know, the Hildebrand Chapel, which is the main chapel at the college we went to, is gigantic. It
Huge.
held
It was the biggest church in Western Canada for a long time.
It seated when the walls were closed, like 2,500 or something like that.
Yeah, I think 2,500.
And it opened up to 4,000 when they needed it.
Yeah.
And it's got this beautiful German Bechstein full grand. Was
Huge.
it 9 feet, 13 feet? I forget.
It's huge.
Like the biggest size you can get for a grand piano, and it's just an amazing instrument. And I would go there during my off hours and just go and yeah, lots of students would go there just to have their quiet time or study or whatever. And I just get up there and say, "You're gonna like this," you know. I'm just gonna do some stream of consciousness, little.
It brought all the ladies to the yard, that's for sure. I tried doing the same thing in the summer when there was no students, and I'd go in there and play my trumpet in the Hildebrand Chapel, hoping it would bring some of the ladies to the yard. But I'm just going to chalk that up to them not being on campus and not me playing the trumpet and not being as talented as you on the piano or singing. So
it's almost like I was giving them a chocolate shake, you know, just standard.
I think so.
Everybody likes chocolate, and you were kind of giving them a health shake, which is probably better for you in the end.
A very specific type of person likes that shake, but hard to find. Yeah. Okay, do you remember the very first time you ever recorded your own music, whether you were singing or playing the piano? Like, was it on a cassette player, or what was the very first time you recorded?
Yeah, the first time I ever recorded myself, and not mom recording us on cassette tapes, was I remember this woman. She was a music teacher, and I can't remember her name. I wish I remembered her name. Really lovely woman who had a beautiful piano in her house, and I met her through this other church that my friends went to, because I went to the French church, and most of my friends were English speaking, and so they would go to the English churches. And I met this woman. She was like a choir director there, and she had a beautiful home with a beautiful piano. And she's like, "I'd love to, if you're looking for a nice piano to play, come on over to my house anytime you want." And I'd just love to hear you playing in there. And so somehow I got a hold of, I don't remember where I got it. It was a 4-track Fostex.
Okay.
And what these things did was you could grab any regular cassette tape, and instead of it doing 2 tracks per side, it would do 4 tracks on the whole band.
Whoa.
So you got yourself a 4-track recorder, just like the Beatles had back in the day. Except it was much more portable. And so I remember trying, starting to write my own music. So I probably was around 14 years old.
Yeah.
And I'd just go to this lady's house and record my ideas. And, it was my first experience of layering, like playing the piano by itself and then playing it back and singing on top of that. And I thought that's just opened up a whole world to me.
It's magic.
Yeah. It was a really special moment.
So when was the very first time you recorded professionally? Like you were in a studio with, the glass between the rooms?
Yeah, that was another super cool moment. And it happened not long after I met Jason Germain. Jason Germain, who's the other lead singer in Down Here. I had entered a competition in my town, and I think it was either a songwriting competition or a singing competition. I can't remember what it was, but I was one of the winners, and the prize was to record a song, an entire song in a professional studio. And this little town that I lived in actually had these kind of crusty old rocker dudes who had this basement studio. And it was legit. It was like really my first time in a legit studio. And the dude who was running the whole thing was like this cool, like late 20s something. He said he used to date Alanis Morissette.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, really? Okay. Well, but no, he was a strapping young man, and I took him at his word, but I had no reason not to believe him. And the guitar player that played on my track was actually my brother's guitar player. My brother's guitar teacher.
Oh, okay.
And so I had written this song. Man, I wish I can't even remember what the song was called, but I recorded it. It was like full professional. I got Jason to play keys on it, and then they somehow got a deal with the local radio station, and that song got played on the radio in my own town, and that was the first time I ever got to hear myself on the radio.
No way. Which town was this?
Hawkesbury, Ontario.
Hawkesbury, Ontario. Wow. And you were college age?
Yes. This was in between high school and college.
Oh, okay. Oh man. Okay, so that was your first time in a pro studio. What were you nervous? Were you excited? Were you overwhelmed? What were you feeling?
I think I felt like this makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like hugely privileged, and at the same time a sense of purpose. Like, yeah, this could be my world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yep.
Other musicians who are like making a living at this somehow, and I don't know if they have side jobs or what, but it seems like they're really serious about it. And
you're gonna chase it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the most memorable recording studio experience you've ever had?
Well, hands down, Abbey Road for sure.
There you go. There you go. And now Abbey Road Studios, I've heard of that. Why is that? Why do I hear of that one?
I think they put that on T-shirts for some reason.
Oh, okay.
You may have seen it on a T-shirt.
I'm just Googling it here. Oh, the most recognizable and famous studio in the world.
That too. Yeah.
That's what it is. Oh, the Beatles. Yeah, there we go.
Among others.
Yeah, among others. So why were you in Abbey Roads?
I was at Abbey Road Studios because I was hired to do some of the singing for the movie Bohemian Rhapsody for the voice of Freddie Mercury.
Right, that little tidbit, that little blip on your career. My goodness. Please elaborate on that. So the movie? What did you do?
Well, I've had a relationship with the band Queen since 2011, and that's a whole story in itself. But they had Jim Beach, Queen's manager, had told me early on in that relationship that they were toying with this idea of making a movie about Freddie and the band's life, and if that ever got greenlit someday, there was no time date on it at all. They'd love to possibly have me involved in that and in helping out with the audio side of things. And I said, and whenever that happens, just give me a shout. You have my phone number.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, in 2016, we finally got that call from one of the movie's producers, Dennis O'Sullivan, who had poured over a decade of his life in getting this movie made.
Wow.
He's a huge Queen fan, an amazing producer, and just kind of driven. He was driven by his passion to get this thing done. It was very obvious. And so, yeah, we got that call and I was like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And so the first part of my involvement was to create these vocal tracks. And so, you don't do anything small when you're Queen or when you're 20th Century Fox. What's the best studio in the world? Let's go there.
Let's get that one. Yeah.
And so, not too much time, I found myself at Abbey Road Studios with amazing jet lag and being ushered into all of the studios they have there, which were made famous first by the Beatles, and
legendary.
Got to see some of the pianos they recorded on, and the big room, Studio One, where they did all the the strings and everything. And
oh man,
we recorded in Studio 3, which is the most modern studio.
Okay.
It's Studio 3 is basically like any pro studio you walk into.
Yeah.
With a tracking room and a control room.
Okay.
But it was a real fun experience. I mean, it was super relaxed. Even though we were working all day, we were working 6-8 hours a day, just recording all of the vocals and working with amazing producers and sound engineers. And Rami was there a lot, and he kind of getting his legs for turning into this amazing person.
Oscar-winning performance. The beginnings of it.
No less than an Oscar-winning performance.
Yeah.
And I was there the day he got his teeth, and he was showing them
No way.
off to everyone. Oh yeah, it was wild. And so yeah, and it was a ball. It was some of the most fun I've had doing what amazingly I get to call my job.
That is incredible. I remember you posted a picture of you on the plane to Instagram or something. It said headed to London. And I knew that you were supposed to be doing the vocals at some point. So then I texted you and said, what are you going to London for while you're on the plane? And you're like, oh, I'm going to go start doing the vocals for the movie. I'm like, which studio? And you said, you don't want to know. And that's when I lost my mind. I said, don't tell me it's Abbey Roads. And you said, it's absolutely Abbey Roads. I was equal parts excited and happy for you and full of rage and jealousy.
Didn't I send you a photo?
You
from
did. Well,
Abbey
I
Road?
said, please make sure you send me pictures. You're like, oh, I will. And which pictures did you send? Do you remember?
I think I sent you one picture that kind of summed it up. And I believe it was the hand sanitizer.
The hand sanitizer. But there was also, you sent me like a close-up of you're like, here's the hand sanitizer they use at Abbey Roads.
Yeah.
But then you also sent me the toaster from... So I'm like, I'm expecting to get these big, beautiful pictures of you in the most legendary studio in the world. And then all you sent me was 2 close-ups of a toaster and hand sanitizer.
The other stuff would have been way too obvious. You know?
Right. You know what? In hindsight, well, actually, no, right away after that, I really appreciated your sense of humor in that, because you really could have gone the traditional way, but I appreciate it.
I really want to give you the scoop. It's the stuff that nobody else pays attention to.
Well, exactly. Who pays attention to the toaster at Abbey Roads? But I certainly did.
Yeah.
So Abbey Roads in the movie, obviously, bumped up your profile and your career got a boost from that. I'm curious if your perspective from the beginning of you becoming the guy who carries, the Queen torch for the fans around the world, if your perspective has changed from the beginning of that to where you are now as far as your role and your involvement in all of this?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if it's changed much. I've obviously gotten used to it.
Mm-hmm.
At first, the weirdest hurdle for me was in the early parts of this whole thing, was when I got to sing Freddie and Queen's music in front of them.
Yeah.
In front of Roger Taylor, in front of Jim Beach. That was so bizarre, and it was... I don't know if I was nervous. I don't think I was nervous, because my video had already gone viral all over the world, and I felt like, well, if I don't have this in the bag, then it's just not meant to be.
Right.
So I had nothing to lose. I was just kind of myself and just having fun with it. And, it was so surreal to watch the guy who spent all of his career 20 feet behind the dude that I sound like everyone I've ever met tells me I sound like, seeing him react and at times his eyes turning red, and it's just so bizarre. Was that the time when, because he was later quoted, he walked into the room hearing you rehearse, and for a moment he thought it was Freddie singing again. Was that time? Wow. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm sure he's said that many times.
Yeah.
I remember specifically when we were in our initial rehearsals, we spent over a month in rehearsals before the first Queen Extravaganza tour, half in Montreal and half in Toronto. And I remember one day specifically we were doing Under Pressure, and we got to that point where that, the really, really high note in the middle of the song. And I don't typically go for that. I mean, I don't hold that note out for the whole length, because it takes an inhuman amount of breath. And I suspect that Freddie kind of overdubbed that note, like in 2 or 3 parts, because it's like I've been able to do it maybe once or twice, and your lungs just have to be so huge to get all of that note out. But I got through it. I did it the top of the note, and I see Roger, who's at the back of the room as always. He was part of those rehearsals the whole time, and I just loved how involved he was. And I did the note, and I just see his arms going up.
No way.
Victory, kind of thing. So I was just such a oh yeah, I made him feel good. I mean,
that's incredible.
Got over this huge hurdle, and so anyway, I don't know if I'm way off the question, but it feels great to be able to help people have an experience that they never imagined they'd have, or relive something that they had in their youth, and just make them, I don't know, for most of the people that come to the shows, obviously they're Queen fans or they're me fans, and they're there to have a great time, and that just makes me want to give my all every single time I get on stage. And I'm very clear that I'm not trying to replace anyone.
Yeah.
Every time I get on stage, I'm just doing my best. I happen to have this ability, this gift that I'm trying to hold with open hands and be excellent with. And I think it has a lot of value for a lot of people, and I'm super thankful.
One of those people that I know it has tremendous value for is one of Clark's favorite Canadian singers.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, Celine Dion. Do you know Celine Dion? Have you met her?
I have met Celine Dion, yes.
So I was with you when your performance for Celine Dion, aired.
Uh-huh.
How did that happen? Can you elaborate on that?
We got word from a producer of this French-Canadian show called, okay, I'm going to try to translate it in real time here. Direct, live from the universe of, and then that's essentially the name of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And every show they honor a different artist. So that show was called Live from the Universe of Celine Dion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like This Is Your Life in music for musicians specifically.
Okay.
And so apparently what they do is they ask the artist that they're gonna honor to fill out a questionnaire so that they can build the show around that questionnaire. And so they asked them, what was your favorite song as a kid? What is what were your favorite memories? What was your first number one hit? And then what they do is they bring the artist on the show, and they, in secret, bring all this artist's like best friends and celebrity friends to come and perform the songs for them. And the last question on the questionnaire is, if there's one person that you haven't mentioned yet that you would love to be there that night, who would it be? And I guess she put my name on there.
No way.
Because she had been introduced to me through her best friend, who said, you got to check this guy out. I know you love Freddie Mercury and this guy sounds just like him, blah, blah, blah.
No.
And so that she became a fan of my YouTube channel and my stuff. And so I got to sing Somebody to Love for her with this incredible band. And it was directly after she and her late husband's favorite song. So she was already just in emotional turmoil, in tears. And then I come out with this huge, bombastic, joyful song. And she didn't know for sure that I was going to be there. And so it was kind of like a surprise and just a really, really awesome time. And there's been so many surreal moments like that, but that's been one of the biggest ones.
That was an incredible night. Yeah, we had a bunch of your friends over, and I don't think you even told anyone what was going to happen that night. Just everyone was in your living room. All of a sudden, you turned the TV on, and then we were all floored. That was incredible.
Yeah, that was a long wait from when we recorded that show until it actually aired. I think it was a couple months. I was like, oh man, I can't wait.
Okay.
Hey, hang on. I gotta grab some water.
Oh yeah, go grab some. Yeah.
Dry mouth.
Dry mouth.
This episode's really going to appeal to your fans who love ASMR.
Marc has many, many fun celebrity stories that he updates me on every now and then, but we could spend the entire rest of the podcast just going over those, but we won't. We touched on a couple of them, so let's move on to. Here's a fun question. So when your initial Queen audition went viral, you were using a specific type of mic. What was that?
Well, I was using my go-to studio mic, which is called the Shure SM7B.
And it looks like a big black hair dryer, right?
It looks like a big black hair dryer, according to 50% of the comments on my video.
Yeah. And because of the success of your video and so many people seeing you using this weird-looking mic, what happened after that?
I got contacted by Sweetwater Music, which is maybe the country's biggest online music gear store. My rep there said, hey, just wanted to let you know that since your video went viral, Shure has, and we have sold more units of this microphone than we had in the last, it was like a long time, like 3 or 4 years put together.
Yeah. And
then he said, we'd like to send you another one as a gift from us to say thank you. And they sent me another one with an engraving on it that says, presented to Marc Martel or something by sweetwater.com.
That's incredible.
And thank you for helping us sell a bunch of gear. And since then, it's so funny because before my video went viral, from my perception, this mic was pretty little known.
Well, I would say little known to the public. But
the public.
It's one of the most classically used rock vocals of all time.
Yeah, it's a studio workhorse.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get much stage time because it has a low gain and it doesn't work well on stage. But what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. The way that I got introduced to this microphone was through Mark Heimerman, who produced a couple of Down Here records. It was a good friend of mine.
Of DC Talk fame as well, right?
Of DC Talk fame. And he loved this mic for Jason's vocal.
Right.
He's like, that mic sounds amazing for you. And so for some reason, I decided I was going to get one for myself a few years later because I thought it was only a mic that was good for guys with low, husky voices. And then I tried it myself one day. I was like, wait a minute, this mic is awesome. And I think it was actually recording my solo record Impersonator with John Fields, and he put it on me, and I was like, oh, actually, this is great for me too, not just for low, husky voices. Yeah, so that's why I had it. And it's fun to hold because it's very kind of ergonomically correct.
Oh, yeah. And it is now the mic that everyone looks to, that Joe Rogan uses, the most famous podcast in the world. It's
exactly.
Yeah.
And, because of that, probably every other podcast uses as well. So I'd like to take credit for all of that.
Yeah, I think Sure's doing well these days.
Yeah.
Between you and Joe Rogan, I think they've got their bases covered.
Yeah, they were really struggling before that.
Yeah. So when you record your own music now, I know you recorded your Impersonator album in LA, but your Christmas stuff, your Queen covers, what does the recording process look for you now?
As far as microphones?
No. Like from start to finish, like do you record at home or do you go to other studios or what does that look like?
It depends. We're pretty low to the ground here as far as what... I don't like to spend a lot of money on recording for some reason, just because I'm pretty adept at almost every stage of recording and I can do it myself. So I'm like, why not? It does help to be working with other people because things tend to move a lot quicker if I'm working with someone else.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of my Christmas stuff, I do myself. The simpler songs that require kind of more simple arrangements, I'll just I can just do a vocal and piano here by myself. And even if I have to add a bass or an acoustic guitar, it's fine. Even like a bunch of background vocals, which I love. But on the songs that we think are, maybe more important or have a chance of being on the radio, we like to go a little more all out on those. And I've got a couple of dudes here in town who I like to go to, like Ben Shive has done a lot of my stuff.
What a beauty.
Who's an incredible music mind here. And of course, one Jordan Weiberg.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Has created some beautiful tracks for me to put my voice on. And, but yeah, I love working by myself.
Yeah.
Although it is, it's like anything you do by yourself, you kind of hit a wall at some point where you're like, I need another mind, another body in here to.
Been a couple songs now where you've had them like 99% finished and you sent them to me and you're like, what would you do this? And I'll make one tiny tweak and then you're like, oh, the song's finished. And so then I take, what is it, 60% of the royalties after that?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
I negotiated you down to 60.
It's a fair rate. Yeah.
But I would say that you definitely opened my ears up to hearing low end.
Oh.
Because I think because before I upgraded my studio speakers, my previous speakers didn't have enough low end and they weren't representing what was going on down there. And so all of my mixes, when I'd go and play them in a car, it was like, oh my gosh, just so much low end. It's like blowing the speakers. Yeah. And that was because I was cutting out the low end because I couldn't hear it.
Right.
And I would give you a mix and I'd say, like, what would you do to this to make it sound better? And you're like, well, you need to open up your low end, like go down to 30 hertz.
Yeah.
And I was like, what, really, down that low? And ever since then, and especially now that I can hear low end in my studio, I can hear it and I'm like, oh man, that feels so good when you can hear that stuff down there. So cheers to you and your golden ears.
My goodness.
For teaching me a thing or two about mixing.
It is a privilege and an honor. Okay. Which jobs did you have before you went music? Did you have any?
Yeah, I had just, crappy little jobs. Like, I think my first job was paperboy.
Oh, nice. On a bike or walking? Did you get a bike?
I think I was walking because it was way too heavy for me to bike with that. But my dad pretty promptly took over for me because I was lazy. I think my problem was that I was lazy and I didn't like getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go deliver papers. Yeah, I quickly discovered that about myself, that if that was going to be a requirement for a job, it probably wasn't for me. And so I did that for about I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months until my dad took over. And I think he did it for another year.
Oh, wow.
He was like our neighborhood's paper boy on top of being the pastor. But he loved it. Like, he loves getting up early and walking.
Yeah,
So he never
exercise.
complained. Like, he didn't have to do that for me. I could have just quit and been
Yep.
done with it. But anyway,
Wow.
and then my second job was stock boy on the night shift at the local grocery store.
Mhm.
And then I had a couple of interesting factory jobs. One, I worked one summer during college at a napkin factory,
Mhm.
and actually, which was in Hawkesbury, Ontario, which is like a 3 or 4 day drive from Cairnport, Saskatchewan.
Oh, wow.
And I one day jumped for joy because I saw a box of Pilgrim restaurant napkins in the factory that I worked at.
No way.
And I was like, what?
Straight from
We make
Briarcrest.
the napkins for the restaurant at my college. And that was mind-blowing for me and made me feel really good about going back to school.
Briarcrest has
and-
so many connections, even
I
in
know,
napkin factories.
It's crazy. And
Wow.
then I had another day and a half stint at this other factory that made, get this, there's a factory for everything,
Mhm.
because this factory focused on the molds on which automobile windshields are formed on. This whole
They
factory
didn't actually
made,
make those in the automobile factory. They made those in
No.
your factory.
this factory only made the molds on which windshields were made
Wow.
on. And they hired me as part of like the Canadian government had this like student worker program where
Mhm.
the government was actually paying my salary.
Okay.
So this factory needed like a sweep boy. So I was the sweep dude. And I swept up all this like steel shavings and stuff. And I'd get home at night and I'd blow my nose and it was completely black. I'm like, well, this can't be healthy.
No.
And the very next day, the owner of the factory comes in and reams out the guy that hired me,
Mhm.
saying that they had way too many workers and I was the first one in, so I had to last one in had first one to go.
Oh, no way.
And then I remember it was a very special moment in my life when I got fired from this job because the dude, he was a younger guy, he was
Yeah.
like probably in his late 20s, and he pulls me aside to tell me like, sorry man, I got to let you go because we got to let some people go.
Yeah.
And he's like, but you know what? I want to tell you, really want to encourage you not to stop here. Don't let this be where you end up. Trust me, you don't want to end up here.
Oh,
It's like,
man. Just straight out of a Disney movie. Was there an orchestra playing in the background or something?
This is very inspirational music in the background.
Oh, man.
And I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, if you only knew, like I as thankful as I was to have a job to pay for my upcoming year at college,
Mhm.
I was like, this is not
This is
what I
not.
want to be. And I was I was just, like really trying hard not to laugh at the dude as he was firing me. But
You know
it
what?
was,
I had a job at WestJet, and I got into I was cleaning planes. I had applied to do to be like a flight attendant. I had applied
Yeah.
to be a call center. All these beauty WestJet jobs. But the one that I could get was washing planes. So I walked in there my first day and was meeting everybody, saying, hi, happy to meet you. And I made the mistake of, in my head, I'm like, well, this is as bad as it gets at WestJet. This is like the lowest rung you're not even on the ladder yet.
Right.
You're touching the ladder. And so I said, yeah, I really want to work with the company. So I thought I'd start at the bottom here and just kind of, work my way up. Talking to these guys who have been doing it for like 10 years, who are like, 55, 60, and this is where they have ended up. And I greatly insulted them by saying, yeah, I'm going to start at the bottom here because I'm young and ignorant and naive. And now, of course, I know and have learned that there's pride to be taken in any job. And just because I was young and stupid back then doesn't mean that the people who were working there didn't take great pride in being there just because I didn't at the time. I would now. But it didn't last real long at that job. It's just one of those moments where we wish you could just crawl under the floor,
Did they respond to you?
Yeah, with just kind of, you could see it in their eyes and their mustaches that you could see what they thought of me when I said that.
Great, well deserved.
Yeah, exactly. But I did have a job where I shaved off welding splatter in a factory, and then I'd have to sweep up all the metal shavings and splatter too. And yeah, factory jobs like that, just. Yeah, you go home and you're just dirty. Yeah.
Oh, they are a good encouragement for you to make a better life for yourself. Because I got there and I was sweeping up the steel shavings and all this stuff. And I had never done this before. Like I'd swept, my mom has made me sweep the kitchen before, but I've never and there was this green powder that I had to throw on everything to keep the dust down.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't realize how important that stuff was, because it just, obviously, when, I discovered how important it was when I blew my nose that night.
Yeah,
but
no kidding.
like this guy this old crusty machinist reamed me out, berated me in front of everyone just because I wasn't spreading enough of this green stuff on there. I was like, how can I get out of this job as quickly as possible?
Well, man. You did, and here we are. Oh, okay. So if you could point to anyone, maybe a family member, but someone who you can say, this person kept me going or encouraged me the most or has had the biggest impact on me musically to get me to where I am right now, who would that be?
Man, without thinking about that very long, I think I might just say my brother.
Yeah.
My younger brother, Dave, who is super talented, has recorded a bunch of albums, has played in a bunch of different bands, super creative guy, and has a really great sensitivity to melody.
Oh, okay.
And I've actually kind of borrowed from him on a couple of songs for me that have done really well for me. Like, for example, How Many Kings, the one melody where it goes, all for me, all for you. That 4-2-7 melody, I had heard from him in a song that he had written. I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. And I used that in How Many Kings, which is actually the most well-known song I've ever written. Yeah. And he's just super creative, has no interest in sounding like anyone else. He beats his own drum. And he really introduced me to rock and roll. Yeah. He was a part of, back in high school in the early 90s, at least at my high school, they had the Freaks. And my brother was kind of one of the leaders of the Freaks.
Oh, okay.
And they were discovering all this underground music. They were the first people to get into grunge music. And he introduced me to like Pearl Jam and all this stuff.
Nice.
And I would say, and he's introduced me to Jeff Buckley.
Oh, yeah.
So he really had his finger on the pulse of really great lesser known music, and is also a great artist in his own right.
Brothers are the best.
Yeah, man. We spend a lot of time together.
Yeah. Okay. When you're performing live, do you have any routines before and after the show? What do you focus on before and after?
I don't know. I don't really have much of a routine. I actually started being really way more into vocal warm-ups in the last, because of, and this happened because of the unfortunate occasion where I had to cancel some shows in Germany this year. I got really sick. Don't know what it was. Could have been just a bad cold. Who knows? But I got sicker than I'd ever been on the road before. I've often been sick on the road before and always managed to sing through a show. But this time it just wasn't happening to me. I got on stage at soundcheck, and since I'd never experienced canceling a show before, I kind of stupidly assumed that by showtime my voice would be back, as it had a bunch of times before in the past, in the last 20 years. And like 15 minutes before doors opened, they called the paramedics to come in, like the guys that were on the location, just to check me out. And, I think it was for insurance purposes. Like if they were going to cancel this show, it had to be like an official doctor thing, right? Understandably. So, I got checked out, and the guy was like, oh yeah, I don't know how this guy's going to get on stage in front of 4,000 people tonight. Yeah. And so we made the unfortunate decision to cancel that show and a few shows after that. But since then I've gotten really, I guess, legalistic about warming up my voice properly. And I used to always kind of get on stage and use the first couple songs as my vocal warm up, which is terrible. Don't do that. Because, your first couple songs end up sounding not as great as the rest of the show. And so, that is definitely the main ritual that I do. I take like I start warming up my voice like 3 hours before the show.
Yeah.
I do like a 20-minute warm up, and then an hour later or two, or then I eat, and then after I eat, I warm up again,
Mm-hmm.
and then by the first song, I am like full blown ready to go.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It just takes a lot of work. It takes a lot out of my day. Other than that, I don't know. I just kind of visualize myself in front of the stage, in front of the audience, kind of get my expectations to where they should be. As far as how much energy it's going to take from me to engage with however big the audience is and however cozy the audience feels, depending on the size of the venue and all that stuff.
Now, I know you don't get nervous in general for your performances, but has there been a time recently where, you know, you're like, ooh, okay, yeah, this is a bit more nerve-wracking than usual?
Yeah, no, I don't really get nervous, except the last show I did, which was just 3 days ago.
Oh yeah.
First show in 4 months since COVID. And I wouldn't say I was nervous, but it was a weird feeling putting like an old pair of shoes on that you hadn't worn for a long time. And the night before I was packing up and looking for my in-ears, and I was like, where did I put my cool belt? And like all this stuff that I hadn't touched or seen for 4 months.
Oh man.
Like I was actually bummed because I couldn't find my favorite pair of in-ears, and I was going to have to use my backups, which I don't enjoy, but I finally found them. But anyway, like it was just like getting my brain back into like a previous life.
Right.
That kind of threw a little bit of uncertainty into the whole thing.
Okay.
And on top of that, it's one of the most bizarre shows I've ever done because it was a drive-in show, and there were 250 vehicles, and they had set up this stage that was 12 feet high, so it was double the height of any other stage I've ever performed on, like which I've never performed at Woodstock. The only stage that I've ever seen a stage that high was Woodstock. But we were really high up, but you had to just for the sight lines from the vehicles. And obviously people weren't allowed to intermingle and all that weirdness, and it's just like the exact opposite of the vibe at a normal show where it's all about people
honk
getting
horns for applause or what? Yeah,
absolutely. After every song, everyone's honking their horns. Yeah. And, but cool nonetheless, you know, it's just another weird thing that I've gotten to do. And we're probably going to do a few more of those.
And that was with Black Jacket Symphony, that one?
With Black Jacket Symphony. Yeah. In just outside of Birmingham, Alabama.
Man, so what, you know, I've done some Zoom meetings where, you know how when you're in a normal room with like 15 people and you can get instant feedback and you can hear how they're reacting to what you're saying, and, you know, you make a little joke and people laugh. But when I'm doing these Zoom interviews, everyone goes on mute. And so when you're saying something, there's no engagement from anyone. Silence. And it's not even crickets. Disarming. It's so weird. So what was performing to Cars?
Yeah,
like?
It was a lot. It was very quiet. The only thing that I could hear was, you know, a couple of woos from the people who were allowed to be in the front row.
Yeah.
And then, the only other thing I could hear, I had to take my, one ear out so that I could hear anybody out there a few times during the show. But definitely they made us know that they were there with their homes.
Oh man. Okay. That is so bizarre. Okay. What is the most satisfying Queen song for you to perform in a show, and why? Is there one?
Bohemian Rhapsody is up there, but that's too easy. But Under Pressure,
okay, I
love doing, just because it's one of the few kind of built-in camaraderie songs in the a greatest hits Queen set where I get to share lead vocals with someone. Satisfying, yeah.
Like, is there one with like certain vocal notes that just feel better than other ones to perform?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain songs where I feel like I sound more like Freddie on than others, for sure. Like, I don't know, Love of My Life, just because it's quieter and I get to do that sort of tender side of Freddie's voice, or tender side of my voice. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, I think you have brought Love of My Life to life in a way that I think a lot of people my age had no idea that was even in Queen's catalog. And that has become one of your most watched videos on YouTube, right?
Yeah, I had no idea that was a Queen song until I was hired for the Queen Extravaganza. I don't even know. It must be on one of their greatest hits records,
Yeah.
and I don't know how I missed it.
Yeah.
When I got hired for the band, for Roger Taylor's band, the first thing that Glenn Lavender told me, who's my bass player and down here, he said, "Oh, Mark, I hope you get to do Love of My Life," because that was the song that it was either he and his wife's first dance song or the song that they walked down the aisle to or something like that.
Way.
Really, yeah, and he's the guy that basically introduced me to Queen.
Yeah.
Yeah, Love of My Life's always special, and I just love the fact that I love the challenge that associated with, because I know people are coming to the show to hear someone who sounds frighteningly close to Freddie Mercury. And so I want to be myself, but I also want to honor that. And so I love the moments that I can really get into my voice and hear myself really well and go, oh man, I feel like I nailed that part.
I can't, when you had your last show in Vancouver, like I've seen you do a number of shows, but that last one, I don't think there was an off note all night. You didn't back down from any of the high notes. It was it was incredible. And I remember it was right around that time when you were figuring out that the amount of fog on the stage had a great deal to do with your vocal ability.
The vocal is such a finicky thing, and I like to think that I'm invulnerable, but that's not the case, sadly. But the thing is, with Vancouver, I almost always have great vocal nights in Vancouver because the humidity in the air is just perfect there.
Right. Oh, okay.
I always love singing in Vancouver.
Yeah. The ocean air. Okay, if you could do a duet or collaborate with any musician, who would it be?
It would probably be a woman, because anytime I do a vocal with a guy, you're always fighting for that same range.
Oh, okay.
And even though I tend to have a higher range than most guys I sing with, but it's a lot easier when it's a girl, because they can go super high. I go high and they go super high. But actually one of my dreams of doing a duet I've already accomplished with Lee Nash, who's the lead singer of Sixpence None the Richer.
Right, yeah.
She is one of my favorite vocalists, and her voice is so unique, and I love what she does in her own very specific style. And we got to do a Cranberry song together after the lead singer passed away, and that was just such a beautiful experience. And we later got together because we were like, oh man, that was so much fun. We got together and wrote a song a little while later, and we still haven't I don't know if that song will see the light of day, but I think we wrote something decent. I would love, if I'm trying to think of anyone who's like not necessarily attainable at the moment, I'd love to do it. Obviously, I'd love to sing with Celine.
Right.
And
a lot of
Sarah
people
McLachlan.
Yeah,
Sarah McLachlan, I would love to sing with her. Yeah, I don't know. I'm actually, speaking of non-females, I'm in touch with Arnel Pineda, who is the lead singer of Journey.
Oh, really?
And so we're talking about maybe recording a song or two together, and I'm just really interested to see what Freddie Mercury and Steve Perry sound together.
No kidding, because you guys have performed together already, right?
Yeah, we met actually a year ago, and it was at the exact same venue that I played three days ago.
Oh, okay.
It was like this big fundraiser, and they had a bunch of celebrities to raise money for this cause, and Arnel was there, and super, super nice guy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mutual admiration there, and so we've been in touch ever since. We're trying to figure out the right song to do. Okay,
memorable career moment of 2019 before COVID landed. Pick one.
I mean, if it's got to be one, I got to say it's the number one Christmas song with Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant.
I remember when I'm a huge Michael W. Smith ruled my life growing up, as did Amy Grant. And I remember you and I were sitting in a hot tub, and I said, so are we doing any Christmas songs again this year? You're like, oh, I'm just going to do the one with Amy. And I said, Amy who? And you said, did I not tell you? And I said, no. You're like, oh, Amy Grant. And I'm still picking my jaw up off the floor from that moment. You're just like so nonchalant with it. Just sitting there. Oh yeah, I'm doing a Christmas duet with Amy Grant. Forgot to tell you. Just the biggest, icon in Christian music. And then Michael W. Smith got added to the bill, which, holy moly, what was that like?
Man, it's so funny just to think that this feels normal to me now. Like, it's not strange at all to work with these people as much of an honor as it is. They're just such down-to-earth people. I've known Michael for over 15 years. I'd met Amy about that long ago too, but we didn't really ever chat, so she didn't remember me, but I should remember meeting her. She's one of those people who makes you feel like you're the most important person in the world when you're talking to her, and she has just that gift.
Oh wow.
And so, I got onto their Christmas tour, and my manager Josh worked his butt off making that happen.
What a beauty.
And it's one of those things, like I think you said earlier in the interview, saying you'd have told my younger self that I'd be well, that's one of those things where if you'd have told me when I was a teenager in that house with my 4-track playing someone else's grand piano, that one day I was going to be touring, not only touring with Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant, but recording a song that goes number one. Life is just really strange and beautiful, and I don't know what else to say about that. That's pretty amazing.
You have had some incredible moments. I've been lucky enough to... I remember we were sitting in the cruise line waiting to board a cruise together, and you were just getting some texts from, I think, your manager, Josh, about... from Queen's manager, and they were talking about you in the movie, and it was all very nonchalant, and you're like, oh yeah, Queen's... had a meeting last night about, me in the movie, and blah, 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 and we're both just sitting there like, oh yeah.
Yep.
And then I looked over, I'm like, you do realize that arguably the biggest rock band in the history of music had a meeting about you last night, and now their manager's, letting you know how the meeting went. And we're both just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, man. I can't even put that into words. It's strange. It's there's so much going on in my spirit when I hear stuff like that. At the same time, like, everybody's just people.
Yeah, right.
At the same time, when you're coming up as a kid, you look up to these people and they seem larger than life. And it's just a lot to reconcile. It's really crazy.
Okay. This is kind of a fun one. Fan art.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any fan art sent to you, Mark?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know why you would even ask that question.
Oh no! What are some memorable pieces of fan art that you've been?
Here's the thing: I love fan art because I used to draw a lot. I love drawing. I did a post of it on my Facebook page recently just to show people some of my early drawings of like. It was so funny. Like, I post my drawings, and in the caption, I'm very specific about this I drew when I was like 11 years old. And then this I drew 10 years later. I'm not a drawer. I'm not, a drawer. But here's some of the stuff just to show you that, this used to be one of my interests, and I wish I'd spent more time on it. And one person in the comments said, I'm sorry, Mark, but these are not very good. You should stick to music.
You should maybe focus on your singing and let this dream go, Mark.
Let that dream go. Oh, man. But anyway, I love fan art. I so respect people who have that talent to draw and to bring, what's in their minds and put it on paper. And so, yeah, anytime someone sends me a drawing of me, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what an honor that you spent. Because I know how much time it takes to and work and skill it takes to make this. And so it's such an honor. But there's in the last year, there've been quite a few really great drawings, and I keep them all. But maybe the best one that I received was actually the last one I received. It was a couple weeks ago. I got a drawing from a fan of, the story goes, another fan of mine was having a birthday. And so for this fan's birthday, another friend of hers enlisted her husband, who is a great artist, and said, would you mind drawing some kind of piece of art for our friend who's having this birthday? And he was like, okay, well, tell me a couple things that she really likes. And she said, well, she likes dragons and she likes Marc Martel. So I will let you imagine what that looks like. But I would say he nailed it.
Are you riding a dragon? Are you half dragon, half Mark?
I am half naked riding a dragon.
Wow. And is that
I think
assume,
I'm wielding a sword. I think I'm wielding a sword, or I don't know. I'm holding something like
that
a
sounds
banner.
so majestic. My
It is
goodness.
majestic. It's like Trogdor level majestic.
Wow. And that's what, framed, hanging above your fireplace now, or
Something like that.
something like that. My goodness. Okay.
I think if you look really hard, it's not on my social medias, but it might be on someone else's.
My goodness. Okay, so I mean, with all this fan art, obviously you have become quite famous and very recognizable. Anytime, it used to be, before the movie came out, whenever we were hanging out, we'd have maybe one person a day when we were out in public come up to you and say, "Hey, are you Marc Martel?" But since the movie's come out, that has increased quite a bit, I've noticed. People tend to notice you a lot more. How are you dealing with your fame?
It's fine. I mean, it's lovely.
Mhm.
Almost everyone is super respectful and kind, and
Mhm.
just want to tell me what I do means to them. And of course, I love that. I can only think of any sort of negative experiences from people, being a little inappropriate after shows and trying to muscle their way into situations they have
Yep.
no reason to be in. But it's really like anytime it's in public or on the street, and people just want to come up and say, and I admire that courage, because I would never
Right?
ever do
Yeah.
that to someone that I admired. I'd just be too scared and
Yep.
shy.
Yeah.
But it's nice, I don't know.
Yeah, you handle your fans with a lot of grace.
I try.
Yeah. Okay. Song of yours that you are the most proud of. It can be one that you have written. It can be one that you've covered. What can you point to as the one you're most proud of?
Well, there's definitely a few gems that I always think of from the Down Here days. I think my favorite is probably the last. It was on our last record, The Altar of Love. It's called "Let Me Rediscover You." And I had written this song. And it's one of those songs that just came really fast, and that rarely happens for me. I'm usually toiling over lyrics and don't know where to go in a bridge, and but this song, I think, came to me in its entirety in an afternoon.
Oh, wow.
Just me sitting at my desk at my piano, and I sent it to our record label immediately, to our A&R guy, and he fired back immediately saying, "Man, if we don't get a number one out of this one, I don't know. We need to go. We need to all go back to school."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yes, finally, I've written something that I feel like is going to reach. It's saying something the way that I want to say it, and it's got a huge melody, and it's personal, but it's got universal truth to it." And so, sure enough, it was the first single off of that record. Everyone was super excited about it. It was kind of the no-brainer. We didn't even have to argue over which song was going to be the first single. Everyone was behind this thing. And so our record label sent it off to all the radio stations and everything. And even the radio stations everyone got on board. It was like by far the most accepted song, we say added song, in radio that we'd ever had. And so we were super excited. And then a month later, we start hearing back from these radio people that, the song's just not connecting with our audience somehow. And, so I thought that was the first moment, I think, where I thought to myself, man, if I can get this excited about something that I've made, and it's just not accepted in the industry that I am aiming to break into, that's got to have some repercussions. Either I've got to completely change my style, or we got to go back to the drawing board somehow, or maybe this is the beginning of the end. And then that was kind of like the first domino for me anyway, that I would point to for the end of Down Here.
Okay. Wow, I had no idea.
But yeah, to turn a really positive question into something super negative, there you go.
It leads where it leads, and that's fascinating to know.
But yeah, I'm super proud of that song. It's one of the few Down Here songs that I'll pull out every now and then when I'm doing a solo show.
Would your favorite lyric you've ever written come from that song or from a different one?
Yeah, probably that song. I think the second verse, which is odd because usually the second verse is it's kind of almost like a throwaway or not as good as the first.
Just waiting
verse.
to get to the other chorus. Yeah.
But the lyric I think is, you see my weakness, my pride, my blindness. You wield your power through them all, and I think that's a really powerful prayer, and it's like a super humble, realizing your place in this world and your relationship with God, and what He can do despite our failings and our weaknesses and all that stuff. And I was really proud of that one line in particular.
Do you have a moment, any of your down here stuff, any of your current stuff, where when you're performing it or when you're listening to it in the car, that you get excited about, like, oh, here comes this part, I get to sing this part?
There's one tune, it's kind of a deep cut. It was on, I believe it was on Ending is Beginning, which was our second to last record. It's called Dying to Know You. Wait, no, that was on the record before that, which is Wide-Eyed and Mystified.
Okay.
That's just sonically the song that I go to. I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad we recorded that song, even though nobody knows it. It's got a real kind of cool modern vibe to it, and I like the lyric a lot, and I just like the production behind it.
Okay.
Makes me feel good.
Beauty. All right. Okay, so non-music questions. If you were to own any object in the world, what would you own? You just take it and from anywhere.
Man, I'm just so unmaterialistic and stuff, man.
But you have to be for this question. You got to put it on.
Okay, I'll turn on my materialism hat, and okay. Can I give you two answers for this?
Yes, please. Yep.
What if I was going to be like super realistic? If money was no object, I would probably do something like buy a mile of the beach in the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh, wow.
Like in northern Florida.
Yep.
Because, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's like the best beaches in the world.
Yeah.
It competes with any beach I've been to in the world, even Thailand.
Yeah.
The sand is like white.
Oh man.
And the water's perfect. And there's just enough waves to body surf and stuff like that. And it's close to home. So I think that'd be really awesome.
Okay.
But if I was going to put on my musician's hat piece of gear, I would probably pick up a vintage like 1960s Gibson ES 330.
Wow.
It's like the 335, but it has P90s in it. And I borrowed it, or I played one on our second album, Down Here's second album, which is called So Much for Substitutes. And our producer, Jimmy Lee Sloas, owned one. Yeah. And I played that thing, and it felt like butter in my hands. It was so musical. It like responds to your hands just in this really special way. And it really, like when you dig into the strings, it really bites back. So I'd love to have one of those someday.
Okay. If you had to choose a different career that was not music, what would you choose? You had to.
I probably, if I wasn't musical, I'd probably end up doing like graphic arts or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Graphic design or something involving
not drawing though. Oh, okay. Because, apparently you're not, very good at drawing compared.
No, I know, but I promise I would have got better.
For your 11-year-old drawings. Okay. Okay. If you had to choose a favorite meal, what's your go-to? Like, yep, this is what I would want, 9 times out of 10.
Probably Indian food.
Oh,
like
yeah.
A good butter chicken.
Yep. Butter chicken, Indian food. Okay. All right. Yeah. Favorite video game. Have you been playing any beauties lately?
I took a long break from video games, but my wife has been up in Canada for the last couple of weeks, and so I've had a little extra time on my hands. And I like the Dark Souls games.
Dark Souls? What are those?
They're really hard and a little bit nerdy, like not too nerdy.
Are they medieval ones?
They're third-person action sword games.
Oh, okay.
And they're ridiculously difficult. Yeah. And they're very kind of mathematical. Like they're very difficult, but they're very fair.
Yeah. Oh,
like you can always figure out how to beat the next guy,
And
if you put the work in. And so I really appreciate the level of difficulty and and reward ratio in those games, in that series. Those are kind of like a more geeky video. Like, I'm not into those first person, like Call of Duty games.
Yep.
I cannot get into them. No matter, I've tried so many times.
Yeah.
I just feel so lost with that field of view of only being able to see
Right.
like a
Me too.
30-degree angle in front of what's in front of you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so bad at those games. And
Yeah.
it's just discouraging. I just don't enjoy them.
But with a good sword
yeah.
in your hand, you're all right.
With a sword in my hand,
Yep.
I think the playing field is leveled a little bit. You know?
Okay. Is that, do you still use your projector up in your studio for your video games? Is that your
I
setup?
haven't used that for a while.
Oh, I was so jealous when I heard that.
That's up in Crystal's studio right now. She uses it for more productive purposes.
Okay. Favorite composer?
Oh man, I'd have to say Beethoven.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Ludwig
because
van-
from way back in the day, watching your mom play?
Yeah, I
Yep.
think the guy was an absolute genius. For some reason, I gravitated to him more than Mozart or Bach. I think Bach felt more clinical, and Mozart felt a little too pretty. And Beethoven struck this balance of just like kind of rock and roll, but pretty at the same time. And I think he had really great pop sensibilities, you know?
Oh,
So yeah, like it's classical music, but you can really sing it.
Yeah.
Really singable melodies and stuff. So I love, like, he's probably, you know, I'd probably say he was probably one of my first influences if you take my mom out of the equation.
that is a solid choice. What about a modern composer?
You're talking like
Like film scores? Yeah, film scores.
So I wouldn't consider myself a film score nerd, so I'd have to go with the obvious, probably currently Hans Zimmer.
Right.
And also because he's the only name that comes to mind in the moment.
Well, we'll just gloss over that one then.
And I just love the tension that he can create with so little.
Ah, yes.
I mean, that thing where he does where it's 4 chords over and over again, sometimes even just 2 chords over and over again. And the layers
And then
that he
just
builds upon
and
layers
builds
and just
builds. Yep.
the emotion that he can squeeze out of that formula is mind-boggling.
Yeah,
But you know, nothing lifts my spirit more than when I hear the Superman theme by John Williams.
Oh, the John Williams one. Oh,
That is
nice.
my favorite film score piece.
Really?
Oh man, that takes me.
What is the main theme of that? I can never remember until I hear it. There it is. It takes so long to get to the main theme. There's
It's all about, like, the main theme itself isn't that great, but it's all about the build up to it.
So
It's
many
like, what's gonna
staccato
happen?
notes.
What's gonna happen? Oh yeah!
There it is. Oh man. See, that's why I can never remember what it is, because there's like 8 minutes of that. Oh, okay. John Williams, Superman. That's a throwback.
But
yeah.
I wouldn't say that's my favorite soundtrack, but that's definitely like the best moment in a musical moment. in a
That one
movie.
gets you going. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite drink to order at anywhere?
These days it's got to be, my standard is a good strong double IPA or a Negroni.
Negroni. Yeah. What's in a
Yeah.
Negroni again?
Oh, I love a Negroni. I make it at home all the time. It's gin based. It's gin, sweet vermouth, and Campari. Very simple. The best
Oh.
cocktails are 3 ingredients.
Oh. Well, okay.
Everyone knows this, George.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I know. I know that. Yeah. Okay. Favorite place in the world you've visited or been to or worked or vacationed?
You know, it's probably a very magical place that you've been to with me. It's Thailand.
Really? You'd pick that one?
Yeah.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
I mean, that was I've been many places in the world. I've been to most of the continents, and just, there's an extra feeling of otherworldliness in Thailand, and I think that had a lot to do with the scuba diving. Honestly,
Right. You got your certification there.
yeah, I know you didn't get to go to. We actually did that right before you guys met us there, right?
Yeah. And I got
because
I
we
got
knew that you
sick on
guys
the
wouldn't
way
be
up.
able to do it. But so my wife had gone scuba diving a few times before we met, and that was something she really wanted me to do with her, and I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds exciting. And so I got certified, and went down. And Thailand apparently is one of the best spots in the whole world to go scuba diving, and man, it did not let me down. It was the most beautiful, magical thing I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. Unfortunately, that same day, once I surfaced at one point, I was bleeding out of my ear. No, I was bleeding.
Oh,
I spit up blood because I had burst
right.
my middle ear or something, and water
Yeah.
had got into, and I was really
Yeah, and you
nervous
couldn't
about
get
that.
water out of your ear for like, I remember
I
like
had
a
water
week of that.
logged. Yeah, my right ear was waterlogged for a whole week, and I was really nervous about it. It was like, how long is this going to last?
Yeah.
Like, did I do permanent damage to my ears? And we had a show in Hong Kong coming up in like 6 days.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, thankfully that all dried up and healed. But man, it's really put a damper on my excitement for scuba diving.
Remember that boat we
unfortunately.
took out? There was supposed to be a whole bunch of other people on that boat with us. And then at the
Yeah.
last minute, they canceled. So it was just the four of us on this
Yeah.
big scuba boat.
Mm-hmm.
Two captains or whoever took us out in the middle of the most beautiful water in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, I only went down once. You guys went down twice, but I think the one time we went down, we saw a turtle and an
Mhm.
octopus. And then when you guys went down again, you saw a whole bunch of other stuff. But my goodness.
Yeah, and then just the beaches where we were at were really cool, and the beach right next to ours, adjacent to ours, was kind of like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah. Yeah. It was such a contrast from one part
We
of
had
the
like
beach,
this nice resort.
pristine resort. And then it's like, oh yeah, we are fighting for our lives over on this other part. Yeah.
Oh man, it was hilarious.
And our boat got stuck in the low tide, remember? And we had
That's
to like,
right.
us and like 6 other villagers had to lift
Well,
that
we were sitting
giant
there for
boat
like
out.
10 minutes while this poor guy tried to dislodge the boat from the low tide sand, and
Yeah.
I was like, what? Can
This-
we get out and help
this
you? He's
isn't
like, oh
getting
yeah, that'd
any
be great. Like,
easier.
why didn't you tell us that like 10 minutes ago?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, that was a beauty trip. Yeah, just randomly meeting up in the middle of Thailand, and you knocked on our little hut door, and then all of a sudden we were there together. That was
the first time we ever hung out.
second time. First
Second
time was in
time.
Washington. Remember
Oh,
at that private golf course that we went on
Yes,
in our
yes,
bathing suits
yes.
and
That was-
no shoes. We had got out of the pool and then walked out. That's the nicest golf course I've ever been on,
oh man.
and we had
That-
the whole thing to ourselves.
Yeah, my old record label, Centricity Music. The guy that owns the record label owns this beautiful spot in the central Washington, and it's a retreat center that they use for the label, and also he uses it for his whatever other purposes he has. And it's got this private 9-hole golf course,
Like
and
Augusta worthy
just
golf
beautiful.
course. Yeah.
and amazing, huge custom hot tubs. Oh, it's magical.
Oh yeah, that was incredible. That was the first time we hung out, and then Thailand was a pretty beauty second trip. Okay, go to podcasts you listen to.
You know, I like many, big fan of the Joe Rogan podcast. I love his interviewing style. I don't know how that guy does it. Like how he can spend so much of his life talking to people. Just to me, it feels so exhausting. Like he's so interested in every single topic and
gift,
can
man.
talk with people for 3 hours,
Yep.
no matter what it is. And he can engage with these like super heady scientific topics, and he can joke around with MMA fighters and all that. I don't listen to all of his stuff. Obviously, I'm not interested in all that stuff, but there's just so much that I think that he's doing that's so important. Like he has some really important people on, really important thinkers who are, who can see what's going on in our culture right now, and who are kind of like setting off alarm bells in a lot of things,
Yeah.
like telling us to wake up and pay attention to what's going on. And but then also I love listening to other podcasts that are a lot less heady than that. Like I think of Pete Holmes's podcast.
Oh, yeah.
It's called
Yep.
You Made It Weird. One of my favorite stand-up comics, and also super deep thinker. I like entertainers who like are really talented at whatever entertainment job they do, but
Right.
are also deep thinkers.
Yeah.
Like Pete Holmes, super hilarious, but also very, very spiritual guy,
Yeah.
and has some really interesting thoughts about that, and really engaging with his guests. And I admire these guys so much because, conversation for me, and it's less obvious when I'm doing an interview because it's all about me and it's easy to talk about myself, but it's so hard. Conversation is a challenge for me, and just in everyday life. And to hear these guys just do it so effortlessly and not stumble on their words like I do all the time. I really admire that.
Okay. All right. One thing that you have improved upon over the past 5 years, one thing you've gotten better at.
Oh, definitely mixing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think And I think John Bryant said that too, right? Or he said that was his the favorite.
He said that is his favorite part of the recording
of
process.
The recording process,
you,
right?
You are. I mean, you are very good at mixing. Yeah.
Oh, that means a lot coming from you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I wish you weren't, because then you'd send me more songs to mix going forward.
I know, right?
But,
I'm
taking
just
work away from me. That's fine.
Taking work away from you. But no, it's so fun. It's like I'm not going to say it any better than John said it already, but it's like putting together this amazing sonic puzzle, and trying to make every piece fit together as perfectly as possible, giving space to everything so that people hear all the work that you put into a song, so that everything can be heard. And yeah, I love it. It's and that's actually been the one thing during COVID lockdown that I've specifically spent time on improving, because I love mixing. I haven't considered myself a very good mixing engineer ever. And just now I feel like I'm finally getting the hang of it. And I feel like I'm getting to the point where I'm okay with releasing fairly dense arrangements that I've mixed myself.
Yeah, that last one you sent me, one of the Christmas ones coming up there. You have definitely improved in your mixing, and it sounds as good as I could ever make it, if not better. So you're doing something right.
Thanks, man.
Okay, if you could be stuck, or if you had to be stuck in a previous decade forever, which one would you be stuck in?
Oh man, I've only experienced 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decades now. Starting my sixth. I'm starting my sixth decade.
No,
what?
You're 40. What? 3?
Yeah.
No. 6 That doesn't make any. Well, no, I guess it depends on when you were. Okay, I get that now.
Yeah.
I get that now.
That's crazy, man. How does that math even work?
I don't know.
I think it would have to be a decade that I've already lived, because I think I would feel like a weird imposter anytime, any other time. I don't know. That's just a weird thought to put myself in a point in history I don't belong in.
So you don't want to go back to the Western days or the Roaring 20s or.
No, I'd rather read about that.
Yeah,
or just watch a documentary or something.
Okay.
But I think I would want to be in a decade with no internet.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I think it'd have to be the 80s.
Yep.
And I just love 80s music.
Yeah. Oh, right.
So
80s love ballads are the greatest thing ever made.
Yeah. They really are. They're a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
They're a thing of synthy.
Yeah.
Just
and the reverse snare, like the you can hear the snare coming before it actually shows up.
Never mind the gated toms.
Oh, right.
That's
and
all
the
of that stuff.
like the amount of harmonies that are perfected to a degree that no one's ever perfected them before or since.
Long, dense, crispy reverbs. It had it all.
Man, and the clearly not real pianos that were a hallmark of.
That's definitely a blight on the 80s.
Yeah,
for sure. That's the one thing. It's sad to me to think that Richard Marx is Right Here Waiting. I think, and I'd have to listen to it now just to make sure, but I think it was recorded on a fake piano.
Yeah, you know what?
It's like such a beautiful ballad. I'm like, no, don't record it on a fake piano.
I'm going to confirm that for you right now. Right Here Waiting for You, Richard Marx. Oh, no way! This is an ad that I'm doing. I'm the voiceover in this spot.
What?
This is for the Bay.
The sprinkler jump.
And they're using Right Here Waiting?
It's the ad before Right Here Waiting for You. Shop your collection, blah, blah, blah. Hudson's Bay.
No way.
That's hilarious. Okay. Come on.
You've made it when you look up a random video and it's you.
This is definitely a fake piano, yeah. But his hair looks very real.
His hair definitely made up for it.
How do you get that volume? Wow.
What do you?
The volume.
The volume in his hair. I don't know. It must have been Vidal Sassoon or something.
Vidal Sassoon. Wow, that is also a staple of the 80s. Okay, so you would be stuck in the 80s.
I think
no
so.
internet. And beautiful music.
It'd be so beautiful to be no internet. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine? That would be amazing. That would be incredible. No stealing music. Artists could actually make a living
Didn't even think of that
without
one.
touring all over the world to try and buy a sandwich. My goodness, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, the last piece of art that really, really left an impression on you. And that's music, movie, book, picture, painting, anything. Car.
Oh man. Okay. When you say art, obviously my brain for some reason goes to paintings and stuff.
Well, it can be. Yeah.
But now that you've widened the scope for me, I would probably say I got to look it up, but it's a Vampire Weekend song.
Oh, Oh, Corey and I were talking about this on his podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Remember? Yeah, you showed me their new album in Vancouver. Which song was the first one you played for me? It had like so much interesting stuff.
Okay, so it's a song by Vampire Weekend, and they used
Harmony
a
Hall.
sample. No, it's not Harmony Hall. Harmony Hall is the best song on the record, but the song right before it. What's it called?
I'm looking it up now. It's Father of the Bride is the album.
Right.
And Hold You Now is number 1. Harmony Hall is number 2. Bambina.
Maybe it's Hold You Now. Maybe it's the first song.
Okay.
I think it's the first song.
Yep.
Hold You Now. They used a sample in it. I didn't realize it was a sample at first, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, these guys are brilliant!"
Mm-hmm.
And the sample they use in the song just takes you to a different world.
Oh.
And it's this African choir that just kind of comes out of nowhere in this kind of like folky acoustic duet thing. And I just thought it was brilliant. And then I realized that it was a sample they took from the Thin Red Line soundtrack.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember you telling me this.
And I was like, man, what a genius use of someone else's work and blending it into something that you've made that sonically seemingly has nothing to do with what you just made, but you just took someone else's art, put it in with yours, and just created this really crazy, beautiful thing. So yeah, I think that was the last time I was really impressed by a work of art.
Oh, yeah. I think that was the last time I was like pleasantly surprised by music that someone had recommended to me. Was when we listened to that in the casino hotel room. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay. All right. What do you miss the most? First of all, what do you love the most about Nashville?
Oh, there's really nothing to like here.
No, yeah, it's terrible.
It's terrible. Don't move here.
Don't go to Nashville.
It's
people
really
are awful. Music
nasty,
sucks.
Dirty. It's always raining.
Yeah.
So
stay away.
It is just my burden to bear to live here. So
it's part of the gig. You have to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. No, it's one of the best places, if you ask me,
in
North America to live, to one day raise a family. Obviously, music is almost everything here, along with a few other industries. But I can't imagine anywhere else to be living at the moment. It's got everything for me.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you miss about Canada?
Poutine.
Poutine. Oh, it's poutine.
Poutine.
Not poutin.
Not poutin.
Oh.
Not poutine.
Not poutine. Poutine.
You can say poutine just because your English mouth doesn't allow you to make the right sounds. But poutine is one of the things I really miss about Canada. The people, I can take or leave.
Yeah.
But, I'm joking. But and I miss my mom and dad a lot. I don't get to see them very, very much.
How often do you see them? Like once a year at Christmas, or
maybe once a year if I'm lucky.
Yeah. Okay. What about a favorite place to visit in Canada?
Montreal for sure.
Montreal. Yeah.
It's Montreal's got to be my favorite city outside of Nashville.
Okay. We'll pick a different place than your hometown. Like, if you had to go anywhere else in Canada.
Not Toronto.
Not Toronto. Why not Toronto?
I just find it. I've just never had a great time in the vibe of that city.
Yeah.
It just feels kind of corporate and stale to me.
Oh, okay. I've only been there for half a day, so I have no idea.
Toronto's, it's great. A lot of my friends live in Toronto, but it just lacks culture, if you ask me. It lacks the kind of culture that draws me.
Oh, okay.
I love Vancouver. What's not to like about Vancouver?
Right. Yeah.
But you know what? If Crystal and I were going to move to Canada, we'd probably move to Kelowna.
Well, right. I mean, really, the jewel of Canada.
It really is.
Yeah.
You guys, you are so lucky to live there. And I think you did a post recently where you said something like you're living in it, or it was in one of your past interviews where you said you don't have to go to the woods because they're right there with you.
Yeah, they're right there. It's like a 5-10 minute drive, and you're out of the city, but you still have access to the city, and you have all these lakes and mild winters and skiing in the winter and
everything but the forest fires is amazing.
That did ruin that one time you guys came up. I remember we were like, oh man, you guys are finally going to experience an Okanagan summer. We'll be out on the lake all day, go see all these amazing sights. And then I think we left the house like twice for a couple of hours because the smoke was so bad.
Yeah, it was a little precursor to quarantine.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it was. And it's so
Very
funny to me that,
disappointing.
like, you know, in the prairies or what, like, we have different seasons, but in Kelowna, we have like, oh, it's forest fire season. So, okay, yeah. It's going to be smoky for a little while. Yeah.
That is a bummer.
So weird. Okay. All right. What about a favorite Canadian sports team?
Definitely Montreal Expos.
Thought you'd say that. You still rocking that Expos hat?
You know what? I can't find, every time I go up to Quebec,
Yeah.
I try to find an Expos hat that fits me perfectly.
Yeah.
And I've bought 2 or 3 of them,
Mhm.
and they all don't fit right.
Oh.
And all of them are just too tight.
Yeah.
So I'm still looking for that perfect Expos hat. I have a big head,
Mhm.
and it's hard for me to find one that fits perfectly. But yeah, I have such great memories of my dad taking us to Expos games, and just the whole vibe of an Expo. You know, baseball is probably the slowest pace professional sport there is in North America, and probably is suffering financially because of a dwindling attention to detail or attention span that people are experiencing, especially the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of have a little bit of sadness for baseball in my heart, because it seems like it's not keeping up with the pace of how things need to be these days to keep people's attention. But I love the Expos. I went to see them like maybe 10 times when I was a kid before they shut things down and moved away, which was very sad for me. The Washington Nationals just don't have the same.
Not the same vibe for you? No. Okay, if you could have any famous Canadian over for dinner, who would you have over? Who would you hit it off with well?
I would this question for me is difficult because I'm such an awkward guy when you first meet me. I'm just not great one-on-one when I meet someone for the first time. So I automatically go to like a place of anxiety when people ask me who I'd like to have for dinner. And no matter who that was, it would be very awkward.
Okay.
Like if I would have like, well, I was going to say Bono, that would probably be very awkward. And if I was going to have, but they're not Canadian, obviously. But so my mind goes to that situation in reality and goes, oh man, now I got to carry a conversation.
Right.
But I would really like to meet Bryan Adams.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. I think he seems like a really cool guy.
Yeah.
And I got to see him at the Junos once when we were up for an award.
Oh, no way.
And like the whole night, we had been outside of Canada for a few years already. We'd been in Nashville, released a few albums, and so we were just kind of unfortunately out of touch with the Canadian music scene, because you literally get no Canadian music down here. It's really sad.
Yeah.
So we got up to the Junos, and I think they were in Vancouver that year or something. And the whole night, it was mostly artists that I'd never heard of, like the new hip bands and all that stuff. And they were just kind of like lackluster, I found, and just didn't really feel like it was like, this is the best our country has to offer. Come on. and Bryan gets on stage.
Yeah.
And it was just like he pushed the bar up to the sky. It was just like, this guy he knows how to command an audience, and he just seems so relaxed up there and so pro, and his voice is so golden. Seems like a really cool dude. I'd love to have him over. Come on over for dinner, Bryan. All right.
Man, you know what? Him and you, did I say that right? You and him and you, I don't know, are the two singers that I can think of that I've seen live where the first song, I'm like, oh, maybe they're only doing one song tonight, because there's no way that they can continue singing well after the notes that they're hitting in this first song.
Yeah.
And Bryan Adams just does it all night long. And the style of his voice sounds like he's just barely hanging on, because it's so raspy, but just beauty at the same time. And he goes so high. And when we saw him he played Kelowna here at Prospera Place a few years ago, he went all night, never backed down from a note. And the guy I think he is one of the most, not underrated, but I think people often forget how many incredible classic hit songs.
Absolutely. The guy's he's a monster songwriter. And I remember, hey, I got to pee. Hang on.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I was going to try to make it to the end. But I can't.
Give it everything you got, and you won't think twice.
I feel much better. Thank you.
There you
for letting
go.
Me
there you go.
Use the restroom.
Okay, yeah. So,
as I was saying,
as you were saying,
Bryan Adams, like you were saying, how he just goes all night with that rasp. Yeah, I don't know how he does it. When I was a teenager, when All I Do It For You came out, that song was huge for me and my brother, actually. And we were in our mid-teens, maybe less than that. I forget.
Made you fall in love with a few girls, I imagine, that song at the time.
Yep. Yeah, and we sang that church a couple times, actually in church.
Oh wow! Turned it into a praise song?
No, we just sang Bryan Adams' song because we both loved it. And actually, at the time, my brother had a higher voice than me because he hadn't gone through puberty yet. And so he was able to sing those high notes in that song. And I would try to do, my best Bryan Adams impersonation, and I would just start coughing. And I did the same thing with Richard Marx. Like, I'd try to imitate that rasp, but when you're too young, that the rasp comes with age. Like, you can't force it. When you're a kid.
You got to chain smoke for a while first.
Exactly. And all that chain smoking that I've done is really
paying off. Yeah.
But it's funny now when I think of that, because now my range has increased dramatically since those days, and I laugh at myself now whenever that song comes on the radio. I can hit those notes so easily. It's like, how is this ever hard for me? But that's just it all comes from hard work.
Exactly. Smoking and hard work is what it takes to be a good singer. Okay, all right. If you could go anywhere in the world for 24 hours, where would you go? Who would you take with you? One person only, and what would you do while you're there? 24 hours.
I would go back to Thailand. And if I knew that my ears weren't going to burst, I would take my wife scuba diving.
Scuba diving again, Thailand with Crystal. Yep. Solid choice, man. Solid choice. Okay. All right. This is the last question before we go. Is there something about yourself that you wish more people knew, that you either rarely get a chance to say, or a little known fact? Is there something about yourself that you wish more people knew?
I feel like I'm pretty open with what I want people to know about me. I don't really feel like I have anything about me that, man, my cat is climbing all over. Bijou. Yep. She's very needy. Loves to cuddle.
Well, you're a cat person,
I am. Okay.
Yep.
I actually could say that. I don't think I've gotten that important fact about me out enough. Big cat guy. I grew up with cats, and it's funny. Jason Germain is a big dog guy. Like I said, my co-lead singer, and I remember one time we were staying at someone's house, as we did back in the day when we couldn't afford hotel rooms. And they had a cat, and the cat was being a little aggressive. And Jason just had no interest in cats, didn't like them, thought they were prissy, and
I can see that.
And so this cat, like, kind of, I don't know if it like stuck its claws out or something, or it like hissed at me, and I just like kind of firmly tapped it on the head and said, "No."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you can deal with a cat like that?" I never, he said, like, it never crossed my mind that you could like interact with a cat that way.
Yeah. Show him the law of the land. Show him that is unacceptable.
Right. Yeah, cats get a bad rap. I know there's a lot of cat lovers out there, but we're definitely in the minority when it comes to dog lovers. I have very little patience for dogs.
Yeah. Why?
I find them very,
because they're just like out of control and they're kind of dumb. I find them.
There's certain dogs that I like your dog is very sweet and respectful. But the thing is, most people's dogs are not as well trained as yours is, and I find them very invasive and offensive.
Those are good words. Yep.
And they lick you, and the slobber, I just can't deal with that.
Yeah,
and cats are just so clean and snuggly.
Cats
it's
are
everything
quite refined, aren't they? They're dignified. They carry themselves in a different way.
Yep. So that's the thing I want people to know.
Okay, that you're a cat guy. You are a cat lover, a lover of cats.
Big time.
Okay. All right. Okay. Signing off.
Was Clark going to come back though?
What's that?
Was Clark not going to come back? Like, he's been out for a while.
Well, I don't know. It depends on. Usually, when he's out with Daryl, he gets distracted, and if there's other people out there walking their polar bears, then they want to say hi and let them play and all that stuff. So.
Well, I can't blame him. He's just distracted by one of the greatest things in the world, which is Canada. He's always thinking about it.
Wow, he's so
good on
Canada.
Him.
I don't know if you saw, but his national CTV interview was the #1 most watched news segment in the country all night Friday and all day Saturday this weekend.
Well, that's just not surprising to me at all.
No, so he's dealing with so many different press things and media contacts, and he's got a lot on his plate. So
I'm just so proud of that guy. Way to go, Clark. Just let him know that I think he's just doing a bang up job.
I will, and I know I speak for him when I say he's very sad. He was excited to interview you today, and he was so close. I know. I was geared up. I was ready. Okay. All right. Well, okay. Where can we send people who are listening to best serve you and your music?
Well, since this is not the 1980s, you can find me very easily and interact with me on my website, marcmartelmusic.com. That's Mark with a C because I'm French. And as well, just search on the Instagram.
YouTube. What's your YouTube channel?
It's Marc Martel.
Just Marc Martel.
So yeah, YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. I tend to gravitate to those lesser known platforms.
Yeah, the up and coming ones. Yeah,
I think most people are on other things, and they haven't figured out that those are actually they're better than the other ones.
The indie platforms, the grassroots ones. You like to help out the little guys. Yep,
that's right. I'm all about the little guy, and I see like a lot of value in the YouTube and
yeah, exactly. And because you've only got like 39 million views on your Bohemian Rhapsody video now.
We're about to cross 40 million.
Holy moly, man!
I'm gonna do a little thank you video for that, just because, man, another 10 million. That is no small feat.
That's
I'm really thankful for that.
Incredible, and it just keeps going and going. All right, thank you so much for being on Clark's show today and for chatting with me.
Well, thanks for filling in on such short notice.
I do what I can.
Really
it's becoming a bit of a pattern, so I try to anticipate it now. But one of these days, he's actually gonna manage to interview someone. So we'll see when that happens.
I'll take your word for it. It was a pleasure chatting with you, my friend.
You too. Okay, say hi to Crystal for me when you see her, and Godspeed and all that good stuff.
Right back at you, bud.
Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you later. Well, what did I don't even know. I'm just going to edit that. We'll talk to you next time.
There's some more.
Okay, bye, buddy.
Bye.